Hey, it's Jay. I wanted to extend a special thanks to those of you who have listened and left reviews on iTunes for this podcast. Please leave a review if you haven't done so already. We sincerely appreciate it. We're producing this show independently, and unfortunately, that is not free. We have to pay for digital hosting space, software, equipment, websites, and travel out of our own pockets. But we'd love to keep this show going as long as possible. Please show your support for this podcast and give it life by making a donation to www.bigbuckregistry.com/donate or pledge your support by visiting www.bigbuckregistry.com/pledge. You can also find our app in our Apple App Store called Big Buck Deer Hunter 2015 and in the Google Play Store for Google and Android devices. Thanks for your support and enjoy the show. Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast, episode number 105. Mike Adams from the Up North Journal podcast, creating the Long Haul Outdoor Podcast. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hi, this is Carl Drake, pro staffer with Realtree Outdoors.
And this is Adam Vinatieri with the Indianapolis Colts.
And you're listening to our favorite deer hunting podcast,
the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hey, this is Jim Willems, president of the Pope and Young Club, and you're listening to my favorite deer hunting podcast ever, the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hello, my name is Merrill Sport. I'm president of the Hunt Channel, and you're about to listen to my favorite podcast, Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
Welcome to the show. This is Jay Scott, your host of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. You know, I'm psyched that you're sitting in and listening to the show. Once again, it gives me great pleasure to bring you great content every single week. And this week, actually, my good friend and co-host is on vacation, so I'm flying solo, so I hope you don't mind. But we have a really good show lined up, and this one's a bit niche-y. And what I mean by that is this show is about Mike Adams. And if you haven't listened to the Up North Journal podcast, you really should give it a listen. Mike's been podcasting since 2007 with his Up North Journal podcast. And he's gone through some highs and lows with the show, both ramping it up and then reinventing himself a few times. And then some of life's little magic happened where he had a lot of just bad situations happen to him. Fires at the house, tornadoes, just things that really shut him down, but he overcame it all. So it's really a good story in life, a life lesson type of thing. But I've learned a lot from Mike over the years, and I've got to sit down with him face to face in Indianapolis at the ATA, and just learned a lot from Mike and how he's overcome a lot of challenges over the years, developing his own outdoor podcast. And if you are in this niche, if you're in the outdoor podcast realm with your own podcast and you want to take some lessons from somebody that's been doing it a long time, then Mike Adams is the guy to listen to because he's probably got more experience than any of us combined doing this. And he's, if you are in the phases of creating your podcast for the outdoor genre, then this is also a show to listen to. Mike shares some things about what he's done, some mistakes he's made, some things he'd probably do over if he had a chance. And I do apologize because the audio gets a little choppy in between as we were discussing Mike's favorite deer hunt. And it's actually towards the end. And I left it in only because the content is rich. And Mike is discussing his favorite deer hunt when he was a little bit younger, and you'll hear a silence, and that's not the phone going dead. That's Mike choking up a little bit as he describes coming out of the woods and seeing his dad there, which is that experience that I think we all feel when we're hunting and we get to hunt with somebody we really respect and can show and experience a successful hunt. in some manner. So without further ado, here's Mike Adams. Mike Adams, welcome to the Big Buck Registries Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. What's happening, Mike?
Oh, man. Thanks, Jay, for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm just enjoying Father's Day here in the evening in Michigan, and got done eating dinner, hit the pool a little bit, and just kind of relaxing right now.
Sounds like a beautiful day in Michigan.
One of the few that we do have, yes.
Gotcha. I guess it's appropriate that we're recording this on Father's Day, you being the godfather of the outdoor podcast world.
Well, that didn't take long.
No, just boom. Got to get it out of the way so we can just relax.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Mike, you've been podcasting for quite a while. And, you know, as some of us fledgling podcasters, outdoor podcasters start to come up through the ranks and enter the genre that you're in, you've been here for a long time. And could you tell me a little bit about how you even got started thinking about a podcast in the first place?
Oh, wow. You're taking me back to about 2007. I always joke, we were podcasting when podcasting wasn't cool. You know,
You definitely were. I mean, nobody even, well, some people knew about it, but you weren't that cool if you did back then.
Yeah, I was, I don't know. I guess I can blame it on my son, my oldest son, who's no longer part of the show, but still does hunt and, gets out with me. But he was 11, 12 years old, young kid. You know how the kids are. They're always on their phones, iPads, iPods. Back then it was an iPod.
Yep. On
the internet, what have you. And he come to me one day and he said, "Hey, Dad," he said, "check this out." He said, "I want you to listen to this." Because he was into hunting and he wanted to get into duck hunting. And that was kind of his thing.
Sure.
And I knew nothing about it. So he's doing a little research. And he said, "You got to listen to this." I said, "What is it?" He said, "It's a podcast." And I said, "Well, what the heck's a podcast?" He goes, "Well, it's kind of like a show on the internet." And, and we still get that today. People say, "What's a podcast?"
Sure.
And I listened to it, and it was a guy out of Michigan, Joe Duckworth. It was Huncast, and he was up in the UP. And I thought it was a really good show, but I thought there was something lacking from it. And I listened to a couple episodes, and I told my son, I said, what would be really good is if he had a co-host. And I mulled it around, and a week or two later, and I said, "What do you think?" I said, "You think you and I could do something like this?" Because I work in the TV industry, and, it's kind of my passion, shooting video and things like that. And sure. I thought, hey, let's try a radio,
Right.
And, that's kind of how it started. He's like, "Yeah, let's do this." So lo and behold, we kind of put a format together, and I talked with some friends of mine at work who were actually into podcasting, some of the techie nerds, as I call them.
Yep.
Some of the engineers, that work in the back. And a guy kind of got me on track and told me what I needed and how to do it and how to get it on iTunes and all that kind of stuff. And we cut a pilot episode, and which very few people have heard up until about 2 months ago. We never released it. And, I showed it to a couple of people, or actually they listened to it and they're like, yeah, you could polish this. This is pretty good. And that's kind of how it started.
Gotcha. What were some of the things that the techie nerds told you to get going? What were some of the pieces of advice that they said you had to do?
Well, the biggest thing, they said you need an audio board, because so many people back then, I didn't know it at the time, but podcasting started, the term came out in 2004. So we were, like 3 years after podcasting really was born. And they said, well, you need an audio board. A lot of guys are doing these with just, a headset and mic, and you plug it into the computer, and it doesn't sound good. And we experimented with microphones and things like that. And, we started cleaning the audio up, and I started learning different tricks of the trade as we went along. But the audio board, that was probably the biggest thing, and learning about RSS feeds and how that all worked, and getting plugged into iTunes. Those were, I think, the biggest things that really, got me started in the right direction. Because, I didn't know nothing. When it came to I'm a video guy.
Right.
I work on the video side of it. I know what audio is, but I'm not an audio expert. And that was one thing I had to learn, and start kind of honing my skills and getting in that direction.
How long did it take you to kind of overcome the learning curve before you felt comfortable letting people listen to your show?
Wow.
Or are you one of those guys I'm just going to put myself out there. I don't care what it sounds like, and I'll tweak it along the way.
That's kind of the way we were. Once we kind of got a base down, that first episode was, I go back and listen to it now and I was like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? But, at first, I listened to other shows, and like I said, the one I mentioned earlier, I think they were doing it through a radio station. So they had obviously had the equipment, and,
Right.
And I was still trying to overcome some of those things. And yeah, I just did it with what I had and kind of moved along and we cleaned it up as we went. Had a small following and people seemed to enjoy it.
Gotcha. Where did you find most of your people or most of your listeners came from? Were they from Michigan and the UP, or were they from all over the country?
It's interesting. Early on, there was a few people from Michigan. Matter of fact, the guy who was working with me on my website is from my hometown, and we got to communicating back and forth on the internet, and he was from here locally. I mean, literally 2 miles from where I work. And then I met another guy from Connecticut who was doing blogging, and we became really good friends. And all of a sudden, it was Texas, Arizona, Colorado. It really was really across the board. It was kind of scary but cool at the same time. It's like, wow, there's people out there that actually listen to what I have to say.
You have what, 2 sons?
Yes, 2 sons, 2 daughters.
2 sons, 2 daughters. And your oldest son was the one that you started with, correct?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Everybody called him Mikey Jr., but Michael, my oldest son, he took right off on it. He stayed with me for probably 3, close to 4 years before he stepped away and wanted to do other things.
Gotcha. So he enjoyed it. He found that it was. I assume all his buddies weren't doing that because there weren't that many people doing it to begin with.
No, he was, he became a legend in his own eyes, so to speak,
Oh, okay.
He had his own segment called Mikey's Game Bag, and he'd come up with a tip or a topic each week that he would do research on and kind of put it out there. And, for a 12-year-old kid at that time, that was pretty cool.
Did you feel kind of all alone back in 2007 when you started it? Like you had no help. You had to kind of just do your own thing. And
I remember trying to start the website and something to kind of give it a home to reside at besides iTunes. And, and I struggled with that because I knew absolutely nothing about it. And, that's how I met my one buddy, Tim, who lived locally, and he volunteered. He didn't know what he was getting into. And he says, hey, I'll help you out. And he wanted to be a part of it. And that's how he kind of got involved. And, we started a website and it went from there.
Gotcha. So you really didn't have any help. And you just kind of had to blaze your own way, so to speak.
It was. We really did blaze a trail. We tried a lot of things that worked and a lot of things that didn't work along the way, and even today it's still, you try new things at times and you think it's going to be, that's going to be a really good idea. And you find out it's not, and you have to kind of, turn directions and maneuver through this big maze we call the outdoors.
Right. Now, who are some of the other podcasters that were joining you in the ranks back then?
I started about the same time Bocast did.
Okay.
Guys out of Colorado. Back then, Neil Roney, who was one of the hosts on the show, and I became really good friends. And actually, I went on a mule deer hunt in Colorado in 2008 and stopped out and seen him, and he graciously opened his doors and, invited me into his home to sit and chat for a couple hours, and rest my weary feet on the way out there. It was a long haul. So, that was the thing back then. And I've kind of found now too, there's a group of us out there that, you really bond and work together on things, kind of like what we've done with the Outdoor Podcast channel.
Right. Yeah. And do you like that there are more outdoor podcasters coming onto the scene now? And some that you're joining forces with, or would you rather it be just you still doing your own thing, trying to figure it out?
Since we started the Outdoor Podcast channel with you and with Carrie from Huntfest Travel, it's really opened a lot of doors and opened my eyes. And I think the one thing that people don't understand in podcasting, there's some, I won't say all, but there's some that, want to do their own thing. They want to be separate. But I think as an overall group, helping each other out, it's not a bad thing. I think we can all help each other and grow the genre, by working together.
I agree. I think the genre needs as much support as it can get because there are so many other outdoor podcasts that have nothing to do with hunting and fishing.
Absolutely.
So it kind of needs its own boost. let's talk a little bit about equipment from 2007 to today. What was your setup like back in 2007?
Well, actually, I'm still using the same audio board. I've got a Mackie 1402 that I was using back then.
Yep.
It seems to still be working great. But the microphone situation is we were using, I call them Madonna-style headsets. It had a little earphone, but it also had a microphone that kind of come across your chin.
Yeah.
They seemed to work okay, but there's a lot of times you'd struggle with having it in exactly the right place, and you get a lot of background noise. Michael, he was famous for having it too close to his mouth, and you could hear him breathing, and
right.
Like, dude, you got to back off that mic just a little bit. But that was our setup then, and we haven't changed a lot. I'm running condenser mics now versus dynamic mics that I was using back then. It seems to be a little bit cleaner, a little richer sounding, a little better quality.
So you like the condensers over the dynamics?
I think so. We just started using them here in the last year, and that was a learning curve too, of trying to get everything set correctly, make sure that the background noise doesn't come through. That's a big thing that I noticed, that these mics pick up everything.
Right.
And I don't know if you can hear right now, but my air conditioning's running. Sometimes I can hear it in the headsets.
Yeah. I mean, there's a low grade something in the background, which I know I can cut out, in the editing room. That's not a concern of mine. And I mean, I didn't know how to do that in the beginning, but now I'm like, if I hear just something that's consistent, I don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And which is, I'm sure you've gone through phases like that where,
well, yes,
you now, the things you do today probably took you a few hours to learn back in the day, but now it takes you half a second to figure something out. Yeah.
You get a ground loop hum from something, like from running from one machine to the other, hooking these to computers. Sometimes you'll get a hum in the audio, and, that was a struggle that I had to overcome with. And I was talking to audio engineers that I work with to overcome those things. And now you can pick up problems pretty quick. And the software, the audio recording software has come a long ways. We used Audacity back then. We're still using Audacity today, but there's just so many more features available to us that make it fairly simple to be able to get out a clean show.
Right. It's fascinating how things have progressed, and the audio quality on every show gets better and better for me and for you. And you've come. I mean, your show is one of the top quality audio shows around, and you still, if I'm not mistaken, still try to tweak it all the time. It's like you're always trying to get a little better, as I am.
Yeah,
as I think everybody is.
Yep, looking for that edge. Always looking for something better.
Yep. So back in 2007, you had the world was your oyster, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
You could have picked from any genre that you wanted to. You could have been Mike's pie cooking podcast, or
pie contest,
right, or the Up North videographer series.
Yeah,
there are lots of things that you have interest in.
Mm-hmm.
But you chose the outdoor podcast. Why that?
It's a way of life. It's my inner fiber, who I am, what I do, what I live, what I breathe. There's not one day that I don't think about hunting, fishing, working on my food plots, hanging tree stands, shooting my bow, whatever it is. 365, I've got something in the outdoors in my brain. It's just the way I was brought up as a kid. My dad implanted it in me when I was young, and I brought my kids up that way. And yeah, I couldn't see myself doing any other style of podcast. And actually, I have considered that. What if I did this, or what if I did that? But no, this is my passion, and I enjoy it. I don't ever want it to become work.
Right. So do you feel like, because it's something you do in your spare time and would do anyway, that it doesn't feel like work? Has it ever felt like work?
Yeah, there was times. Yeah. Back when we grew the team to 14 members, it was a big headache. It was a lot of work, and it didn't work out well. And right. It became work. Yes.
Okay, so 14 members. That's interesting. So let's talk about that a little bit. Why 14 members?
Because I couldn't get 15. I always thought bigger, badder, faster, more. It's that mindset of, whether it be shooting rifles, bows, or driving cars, if it's bigger, badder, faster, it's better.
Right.
And we found out it just didn't work. We thought it was working, but there's just so many problems that people don't foresee that come along with that. So there was issues, and amongst other things that were in my life that caused problems, and it all kind of fell apart at one point.
What were the duties of the 14 when you were doing it? And then when did you realize that you didn't need that many, and that it was causing more problems than help?
Oh, Lord. We had most people we brought on, what we were trying to do, we were trying to blog, shoot video, produce a vidcast, and the podcast all at the same time. Most of the people came on, we call it, pro staffers. There's that word again, pro staff, that
right.
People want to hang on to and think it's not professional. It doesn't mean you're a professional hunter or nothing like that. Some people do. And they think it comes with a lot of freebies. And what pro staffer means is a lot of work free by you, not that you get a lot of free stuff. But
right.
Most of the people were out hunting, fishing, doing whatever, trying to shoot video. And it became such a chore to try to teach people how to shoot video the way I wanted to, number one. It was acceptable for me to put together. That was a huge problem. Nobody wanted to write. That was another problem because we were blogging at the same time. Writing is another passion of mine, which I haven't done in a while. Just haven't had the time. But just trying to keep people on task and moving forward and fulfilling their obligations. I think that was probably the biggest thing. We had a staff manager, we had a marketing manager. I was doing the vidcast and podcast. Had a web guy. It was a lot of work, a lot of responsibility for a lot of people.
And you were trying to organize the whole thing. Is that correct? Were you the guy in charge?
Yeah, best I could.
Okay.
And the problem for me is delegating and giving up responsibility.
Okay.
That's, I don't know if that just is my nature or if it's might be my job at work, even that I do. I'm just kind of in charge of things, and that's what I do. It's my personality. So that was hard to do, to tell somebody, hey, you need to do this and you're in charge of it. And then I want to tinker with it.
Right.
Once I give that up. So, yeah.
Was there ever a time when having 14 members on your staff, and it sounds like they're all just independent people trying to focused on providing content for the Up North Journal.
Right.
Was there ever a time where you said that this is working? Like having 14 is actually working out okay?
At first it did. At first everybody was excited. Everybody was on board with the idea. And I want to say that was probably before we hit anything over 7-8 people. Once we got up to about 10, you start hitting double-digit numbers of people. Then, you got personality conflicts. You've got, issues of people that like hunting. I mean, you get out and hunt. You're not going to get game every time you go out. And you might have a season where you don't have any success. And then, you've got other people saying, well, hey, I'm pulling my part, but they're not pulling their part. And you start getting that inner turmoil. It makes it rough. And I think that was really when I noticed that, hey, this just isn't working. And there was other issues, personality issues that were going on as well. That it just kind of all fell apart.
Gotcha. So how did you kind of disband the group once you made that decision? How did that work?
I had help in doing that from somebody else within the team. It wasn't necessarily all my part.
Oh, okay.
We'll just leave it at that point.
Okay. So you got to tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
How does that work?
It ended up with the first guy that I started working with, my web designer. Him and I, we were both ready to throw in the towel, and we hooked the boat to the back of the truck. And I said, Tim, we're going fishing. He says, oh, okay, are we just going fishing or are we going to talk? I said, no, we're going fishing and talk. We sat on the river that day for probably 5 or 6 hours and contemplated, the future, what we were going to do, how to recover, if it was recoverable. Mm-hmm. There was lots of decisions made that day. And, we just decided to kind of go back to our very humble beginnings and start, kind of from page one again.
What year was it that you what year was it that you had the talk on the river?
I think that was 2010 or 2011.
Okay.
Yeah, it was I think it was 2011. Yeah.
So you went about 4 years
mm-hmm.
building it up, and then decided this is too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not working.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you go back to? What did you decide your humble beginnings were to restart?
Just basically trying to knock out a show every week if we could. Doing a simple podcast, cut the blogs back, not worry about the blogging, not worried about the video, and just concentrate on the podcast. And, things seemed to smooth out at that point and level out. We kind of got back to, like I said, our roots, and that helped a lot.
And how many people were part of the redo?
I think there was 5 of us at that time. Kind of basically where we're at right now. Okay. Not just there's been very little change since that talk on the river, other than the fact that our what do I want to say? I don't want to say success, but our I think the content of our show was better.
Okay.
I think the stress was off of us. That to me, that was success. It's not always about the number of listeners. It's about the quality of what you're doing, and the love you have for it. And that's at that point, things begin to really smooth out and kind of get back on track.
Gotcha. So who's part of your crew today? You have approximately 5 people.
Yeah.
Describe let's start with Danny.
Danny.
Describe Danny to me.
How long do you have?
As long as you need, Mike.
Danny was with us from early on, and part of the inner turmoil at that time when everything disbanded, he stepped away for a while. Had a fallout with one of the guys on the team, and that was the other thing is it hurt some friendships that I held very dear to me. And two of those friendships have since been mended tremendously, and we're just we're doing a lot of things together. But Danny, I had a long talk with him, and I said, hey, you know what, man, I need some help. I'd like for you to come back and be a part of this. You're an integral part, and since then, it's him and I've been pushing the podcast and kind of been running in the forefront. And he's my right hand man. He's that comical, funny guy that, he allows us to pick on him a little bit, and he takes it, with a smile on his face. But, there's no other guy I would rather have sitting in the chair in front of me right now. If it wasn't one of my kids, it's Danny, and I can't say enough about him. Yeah,
Danny is a great guy, and I've enjoyed all the conversations I've ever had with Danny, and he makes me laugh. He's just one of those guys. He's just a humorous person.
When I've had some really bad down times, that guy has been there for me and been on the phone. And before I get off the phone, he's had me laughing. And he's just a great guy. I can't say enough for him.
You have to have somebody like Danny on your staff.
Yeah,
no question. Let's talk about Mikey now. I know he's now broken away from Up North Journal, but who is he? What's he like off the mic?
Oh, off the mic, he's become his own man. I've watched that kid grow up and become a man, and he's finished up his 4th year of schooling for electrician. He's working. It's I'm proud to call him my son, and we still hunt together, fish together occasionally. Not as much. I mean, our lives are busy in 2 opposite directions, but we still get out every now and then. He went up to deer camp last year with me and had a great time. So
cool.
He's become his own man, so to speak.
So he comes back into the mix here and there. He's bailed on it completely.
He said, "Can I? You think guys would want to hear from Mikey again this year?" And I said, "Absolutely." And occasionally I get people asking, "Hey, what's Mikey up to?"
Right.
So
well, that's going to make you feel good.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's it's proud when you see your kids do well.
Absolutely. There's nothing you can be more proud of, really, when it's all said and done. Who else is on your team?
Kevin Hutchins, friend from college. I've known him the longest. I've known him longer than I've known my wife.
Really?
People call him my second wife. Yeah, we've known each other for over 30 years.
No kidding.
And we met each other in 1983, October of 83, when we went to college, and been lifelong friends. He's kind of behind the scenes guy. He's done some writing for us, shot a little video for us, but he kind of helps me with the business side of things and keeps me straight and keeps me focused. He's another guy that when the chips are down, he's always there for me, calling me, making sure that I'm okay, and just picking me up when I need to be picked up.
Gotcha. All right. Your younger son is a part of the crew from time to time.
Yeah, Jacob. He just turned 16. Actually, we just went on our first, I'd say, road trip together. We went to southern Indiana last week shooting a video for outdoor. I guess I call it a youth outreach camp. And we went down there for a week, and I seen him step to the plate and start to spread his own wings a little bit, and kind of taking flight. But that's my hunting buddy, man. Him and we do a lot of hunting and fishing together, and he's occasionally on the show as well.
Gotcha. Who else do you have on your staff?
Randy Duncan. He did a lot with me here a while back, but he's got 2 young boys, and he's raising them right now. So he's still with us and does things, but not in quite the capacity that he once was. Mm-hmm. And Tim Ford is still with us. He's the guy who helped me start the website portion of it, and he works with Danny on the website as well. So he's kind of behind the scenes guy too.
Gotcha. All right. Is there anybody else?
Last but not least, my friend across the pond, whom you had on the show, I think, was it last week or week before last?
Yes. I did not realize he was part of your crew, actually.
Yeah, well, we brought him on. That's back when we were blogging. He started writing for us, and that was kind of before we had the house issues here and everything fell apart. But him and I are collaborating on something, and that's I'm going to leave it at that because it's going to be a surprise coming up here in a couple of months, I hope. So we're working on something together, but yeah,
I could tell that there was some tight connection, like you guys had a stronger connection because of the camaraderie that Matt openly expressed.
Busted my chops.
Yeah, even in your absence, without being able to defend yourself.
Yeah,
and calling a turkey a glorified chicken.
Yeah, we've had many a talk about that. So when he makes it to the States, we're going to show him what the almighty Thunder Chickens are about. So I cannot wait. His life has changed immensely here recently with the advent of a new baby in his life. And the one thing he probably didn't tell you that he told Danny and I that nothing would change. And
okay, Matt,
I'm seeing the pictures now. I'm seeing the eyes, that are sleepless and sagging, and the bags under them. So I'm just wondering, Matt, when you listen to this, are things still the same as they were before?
Bags are a good indicator that things have changed.
But that's kind of where we're at right now.
So that's your group. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's ragtag bunch.
So what would the Mike Adams of 2015 tell the Mike Adams of 2007 today, knowing what you know about where you've been?
Wow.
Heavy duty question.
Yeah, that is, man. I'd have to think about that. I guess always remember where you came from. Be humble and remember those who have helped you along the way. And I do that. But I mean, it's you look back at things and would I have done anything different? Yeah, I might not have grown the team as big as what it was. But you know what? Even through adversity, you learn valuable lessons that you take through life.
No question. There's no question about that. So, in other words, you wouldn't change anything because you had to learn from that to grow.
Yeah, basically. I think so. You can always, everybody makes mistakes. There's nobody that's perfect. And along the way, if you're a good person, you learn from your mistakes and you take them with you. Not as baggage, but as a tool to use later on.
I suspect that we'll have a good number of outdoor podcasters listening to this, and most likely a decent number of outdoor podcasters that are either just getting in or have gotten in recently or want to get in to the outdoor podcast world.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give them today? I mean, and we joke about you being the Godfather, but you really have been doing this longer than most. What would you give for a piece of advice to them right now?
Wow, that's heavy too.
Yep.
I guess do it for the love of it. Don't do it for any glory that you think you're going to get. Don't do it for anything that you might think you're going to get free. Like I say, the pro staff idea. You got to do it for the passion and the love of it. Because if you don't, it's work and it doesn't pay very well. So. You gotta love what you do, because if you don't, my dad always told me, if you don't do it for the love of it, it's work, and work's no fun.
This is true. You have to, there's a burning passion, that has to come in. It has to be fun. Even if And it's one of those labor of loves that you just love it, and you don't care that it takes some extra work or that you're even not going to get paid for it. That's okay. I don't really care.
Yeah.
I just enjoy it. And I enjoy producing it for myself as far as learning from other people and talking to these most interesting people on the planet. And also discussing topics of the day that are relative to the outdoor hunting and fishing industry, and being able to share that with a lot of the people and getting that information on audio, making good tapes so others could listen to it. That's very satisfying to me somehow. It
is, and that's you talk about how we started. Our focus, that's really kind of where it was at, was people who were looking for information, looking for, how do you hunt squirrels, or how do you set up a decoy spread for ducks or geese, on the water versus a field, just all kinds of different crazy things that we've done. We just want to provide information and get kids and new people excited about the outdoors because, back then things, numbers were dwindling at the time, and, we're not seeing that so much anymore. And, I'm not saying that we're taking credit for any of that, but things are rebounding and growing, and I'd like to feel like I've contributed in some small way to that.
Right, definitely. So let's go and let's talk about hunting for a little while. What's your philosophy on hunting? What are you a meat guy? Are you an antler guy when it comes to deer hunting? What's your philosophy on that?
I'm starting to change.
Okay,
my philosophy has changed a lot. When I first started hunting, back with my dad, many years ago, when I was a little guy. Brown it's down. We've all heard that story. And, throwing meat in the freezer. I mean, I love venison. I love to try new types of game meat. There's not much that I won't hunt or fish for, given the opportunity. But, lately I've started trying to become more of a conservationist, thinking about, the herd, the health of the herd, the health of the outdoors. And I'm starting to buy into deer management, whether it be one group or the other. And, I'm actually starting a deer co-op. Next week, we're having our first meeting. So that's kind of the way it's went. And I think a byproduct of that is becoming I won't say a trophy hunter, but an antler hunter. It just lends itself to it just by the sheer way that you have to perform the task.
Gotcha.
I don't know if that answers the question or not.
No, it does. It does. I think we kind of transform as we get older and take on a different philosophy on hunting too. Who's your biggest inspiration in hunting? Like, who's the person you credit teaching you about the great world of the outdoors?
Oh, my dad.
Your dad. Okay.
Yeah. I won't say he always did it right. I don't talk about my dad a lot on the show. Mm-hmm. He's got what I call old school mentality. He just gets out and does what he wants to do when he wants to do it, where he wants to do it. And, I'm more the guy that, I won't say it's ethics, but it's just, I try to do things the right way, I just guess we just don't see eye to eye on a lot of those things. It's just an old Southern boy does things differently than a guy from, the North in, 2015.
I know who you're talking about. I know that character. They walk their own path. There's no question about it.
Absolutely.
Yep. He sounds like he's a colorful guy, though.
You have no idea. Next time we're together, wherever it might be, we'll have dinner and we'll sit and talk.
That would be fabulous.
But you know what? There's no other person I'm other than my kids that I'd rather be with in the woods. I was just thinking about today, obviously being Father's Day. The deer hunts we've had, my first bear hunt that he was part of, fishing trips and things of that nature, just crazy, stupid things in the past that you're just like, how did we ever survive that? Just those types of things. He's the one that put the fire in my soul.
Gotcha. That's awesome. I think fathers are responsible for a lot of that. And these days, I think moms are becoming more and more responsible for that, especially as more ladies get into the outdoor industry.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be a very interesting world in the next 20 years to see how daughters, I think we're going to just have moms and daughters, much like we've experienced, through the 60s and 70s, sons and fathers and sons. So it's going to be a great group of people.
My daughters will kill anything.
Nice.
I've had the fortune of actually being with all four of my kids when they took their first deer. And that task was completed last November with my youngest daughter. So, they're all very murderous when it comes to being in the woods. I hope I think they've had a lot better success in the last 3 or 4 years than I've had. So
interesting.
I hope they continue down that path. You get to our age, you've killed deer and you've killed turkeys, and it doesn't matter anymore. The point is you're passing it along, and now it's you want to see your kids do that and see the joy in their face. And now when it comes to the time that they have kids, I want to be Papaw that takes them out and it lets them experience that as well.
Right, definitely. Speaking of memorable moments, would you take us on a deer hunt and bring us back to one of your most memorable hunts that you can remember?
Wow. I would say probably the one that sticks in my head for me personally, where I killed a deer, would have been 1982, November 15th, 1982, opening day.
November 15th, 1982. All right, this is quite a time machine we're going to go on.
Yeah.
All right, 1982, November 15th.
I don't even know what was on TV at that time or playing on the radio, but I mean, it was the beginning of my senior year in high school.
Okay.
Never killed a deer up until this point. I was 16. See, in Michigan, you couldn't firearm deer hunt till you're 14 at that time. So this would have been my third season in the field. And we went to an old deer camp that my dad used to be part owner in. And the gentleman invited us back to camp to hunt there this particular year. And there was a new section of land that was opened up by the state. And I believe it was owned by the Henry Ford family at one time. And it had been closed off. The family owned it. Well, they give it to the state. It finally became public land. And lo and behold, there's elk in this area. And I'd never seen an elk in the wild while I was hunting. I'd seen them, in a car up in that area when I was a kid driving by. Hey, there's an elk over there when they first started reintroducing them. So this particular morning, my dad took me out to the spot he had scouted. And back then, we didn't have hunting shacks or tree stands or anything like that. We plopped our butt right in the snow, right up against a tree, and sat there and froze. So,
Gotcha.
I'm all bundled up. I got my 30-06, and that morning, it's still dark. He went on his way and left me there. And as he walked off, I waited a few minutes, and, I went to put a shell in the chamber. And I didn't want to make a big noise because it was deathly quiet.
Do you remember what you were wearing back then? Like what kind of clothes were adequate attire?
Big, thick bib overalls, just anything that was insulated that you could wear. Oversized boots that were too big for me with 15 pairs of socks.
Yep.
Gloves that were really too big for my hands, and hunter's orange,
With the Wonder Bread package slipped over the sock so your feet don't get wet kind of thing?
Absolutely. Old school time. We had a little sterno can, silver sterno can that we'd fire, put our warmer hands over. Stay. And I kid you not, there was at least a foot of snow on the ground. And I'm sitting there, and it's jet black and it's cold, and you can just feel your breath hanging. So I go to rack a shell in the chamber, and I ease the action down, not wanting to make that big loud clank.
Yep.
And sitting there at about 9:30, 4 deer come through, and the last one in the line is a big buck, big 8-point, and 30 yards away broadside. And my heart's just like out of my chest. And as I pull the trigger, I hear click, and the deer, spooks, runs away. And I literally start crying.
Right.
Thinking my dad is going to kill me. I mean, that was the thing. I wasn't worried about me not getting there. I was worried about disappointing him.
Gotcha.
That was just something that, I wanted to live up to his expectations, I guess. And, I was a mess. So I finally figured out what happened. I took and racked the shell, racked another one in real hard. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do now, dum-dum? So I just kind of sit there, feeling sorry for myself. And, I looked at my watch. I said, well, Dad will be here in, a half hour or so. Well, half hour led to, 45 minutes to an hour. It's creeping up on 11 o'clock. Hey, where's Dad at? I'm in an area that I don't even know. Don't even know how I got there. So still waiting. About 11:30, quarter to 12. All of a sudden, I look off about 60, 70 yards out. I see the biggest animal I've ever seen in my life. Here comes a big bull out. And I'm like, cool. And I'm like, oh, no, he's coming my way. And you couldn't help in the area at that time. They'd never been hunted, since 100 years or more. So this thing's not afraid of anybody. Is it starting to get closer to me? I noticed something behind it, and I'm looking. I'm like, wow. I wonder if that's, calves with them and maybe a cow. And I start watching. I'm like, no, that's deer. And I start counting them, and I get up to 10, and here they come. And they're filing in front of me, single file at about 20 yards out.
Oh, wow.
And the last one was an 8-point buck. And this time I didn't miss. Maybe 3 went down, but double tapped him and down he went, never run. But the most memorable part of that hunt wasn't so much the buck. That bull elk stood there at about 30 yards, shook his head at me, pawed the ground, and it scared the life out of me. I thought it was going to charge me.
Wow.
And, it was the most majestic thing I'd ever seen in my life. One of the most memorable experiences in my life. But after that, my dad said, well, your first deer, I'll gut it for you. And, I'll help you get it back in. Well, Dad wasn't there, so I had to do it by myself. And by the time I got done, I was sweating and had my shirt tail out. I had my coat off. I had my overalls down, around my waist, and I was just a mess. And I waited, and it must have been 12:30. I'm like, man, where's Dad? Well, got the rope out, hooked him around the antler, started dragging. It was about a mile walk. Got back to the parking area. Where's the vehicle? The vehicle's gone.
No way.
I'm like, dude, they left me in the woods all by myself. Up walks DNR officer, checks my deer, gives me a hunter's successful badge for shooting a deer, and, checks it out and everything. And then my dad pulls in with his buddy. And as they pull in, I remember him looking up over the top of the dash of the truck. And he had a smile on his face.
Yep.
So, I knew then that, I did it. Dad's proud of me. So that one really sticks in my mind. Sorry, man. I don't mean.
Mike, that's what this is all about. That's exactly the feeling that I think all those people who don't do this will never appreciate.
Yeah.
That's it. It's the best thing in the world.
And I got that deer sitting right here beside me here in the office too. I mean, he was a wall hanger.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
I love that.
But my pops means everything to me.
That's a great story, man. I love it. Love it.
And the reason he wasn't there was because him and his two buddies both had shot deer. We all tagged out that day. So they had got their deer and they said, well, hey, we'll just go drop ours back off to camp. We'll come back and get him. We're going to leave him out in the snow. So it paid off, perseverance pays off.
Right.
I screwed it up in the beginning and I stuck with it and, it worked out. So
that's a great story. I don't think I've ever heard a story told where there was like an intruding bull elk just kind of hanging around. Oh, it scared me to death, man. I thought it was going to charge me. It was the craziest thing, but it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen too. Right. It was a pretty cool hunt. That's so cool. Who are some of the most memorable guests you've had on your show over the years? We had T-Bone on back, about around 2009, 2010. We had Nick on the show. Mm-hmm. Ralph and Vicky, they're a hoot. Those guys, we see them at shows now when we go to shows, and they're some of the most friendly people you ever want to meet, and genuinely interested in listening to your stories. We've had them on the show. The Brunsons we've had on. Larry Weisen. I think that's probably one of the ones I won't say proud, but there's been others, and I know I'm leaving out some people, but those are the ones that really stick in my mind. Gotcha. How about some of the most controversial issues that have been discussed on the Up North Journal podcast? Wow. Deer management. Yeah, that's always a hot topic. Definitely. The way deer are managed in our state, I'm a strong advocate for mandatory deer checks or big game checks. And I think we're doing our deer a disservice. I've gotten a little bit of flack for that. Anything anti-hunting, I jump up on a soapbox or Second Amendment. Those things tend to get me in a little bit of trouble at times. The things I say make some people mad. And I've had, listeners of the show, write me and say, I think you're off base. And, and what I do in those situations is I'll email them back and I say, you're free to have your opinion. And maybe you misunderstood me. And, we try to spell things out, in a civil way and have a good conversation about it. And sometimes we never will agree. So, but that's my passion. Yeah. You always have somebody that disagrees with you. That's just part of life. Yeah. But it is nice to hear from your audience, whether they agree with you or not. It's just nice to know that you're reaching somebody to spread your message. Oh, absolutely. It's really rewarding.
that's one of the best things you can do when you're podcasting. You get those emails like that. There's nothing better.
Right. Oh, it's one of the best feelings in the world. It's like when you actually get an email say, "Hey, we really love your show. Thank you so much for doing this one segment. It was one of the most interesting, informative shows and pieces of content we've ever listened to."
Yeah.
Makes you feel great. Absolutely.
First time I got an email, though, it scared me to death.
Right. Like, what's that?
Why is this guy emailing me?
Right. Have you ever gotten in trouble for doing the podcast?
My wife, yes.
With your wife?
Yeah. Because I have to hush everybody down in the house. It's like, okay, we're getting ready to do the show. You need to be quiet. And I've been told a time or two you need to find a different time to do this. You're always doing this on this night and da 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 da. Yeah. She gives me some grief.
Yeah. Yeah, it is they must, your whole family must get used to it though. Like they know it's coming. It's almost becomes a part of your life. And at this hour on this day, that's Dad's podcast time.
Yep. 6:00 Sunday nights.
There you go. That's it. It's just the way it kind of turns out. And cool. Mike, this has been awesome. And, man, we've covered a lot of topics. Where do you want to go from here? And there was a brief moment in time here where you actually weren't on the mic.
Yeah.
And I think it was something you shared this with me a little while ago, and that it was you had some personal struggles recently. What happened?
Oh man, this was back in 2013, the worst year of my life. You think when the team disbanded and all that, and you think, man, this is the end of the world, and man, my podcast is suffering, yada yada yada, and then for whatever reason, your whole world gets shaken. 2013 was that. One of my kids had some health issues. Then I lost a grandmother, and that was in May of 13. And then 3 days after I came home from that funeral, our house was hit by a tornado. And we were out of the house for 17 weeks. Wow. And during that time, I was in a car accident. A kid crossed the center line on me in a rainstorm and wiped me out. And actually, I was on my way to do an outdoor show that day, and it kind of scrambled me a little bit. And we got back in the house, and 2 weeks later, the house caught fire and burnt, and we lost pretty much everything. Most things that we had were smoke damaged or burnt. Yeah. So we started back trying to do the podcast halfway through the rebuild of the tornado, and we got a few shows. I think we got 2 shows out, and then we had the fire. And then we just shut everything down for about a year and a half. Yeah. So it took time to rebound from that, get equipment back, and get my faith back in line of where it should be, and get my family secure. I mean, all those things. I didn't hunt for a year and a half. There was no going out and going into the field. There was no podcasting, obviously, and there's a lot of things that didn't happen. So. Yeah, it took a while to rebound from that, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, is what I say. Yeah.
How do you feel today?
I feel like I'm on top of the world. I feel like I'm as good or better than I've ever been. Whether it be emotionally, spiritually, health wise, family wise, financial, everything. Because it can all be taken away in a second. As long as you look at life that way. Live your life to the fullest, and you know what? You're doing something right.
Right. Yeah. Well, brother, I am sincerely appreciative of you joining us and being just having you as a friend in this outdoor world. It's I'm glad I met you. Let's put it that way.
You know what? ATA this year was kind of our rebound moment when we finally started. It said like, "Yep, we're back, and we're back strong." And by meeting you guys, that meeting we had that night when I still remember when you said what you said across the table. I don't know if I smiled or not, but inside I was smiling from ear to ear, and I'm like, yeah, this guy gets it. So, and it's been a great friendship ever since. And, it's just onward and upward with everything that we're doing together.
That moment in time, I mean, I'd been following what I could of the podcast. And granted, when I got into it, you were in that lull phase, but I noticed they were always in the top rankings. And, when you're a new fledgling podcaster, you try to find other techniques and listen to other shows, and yours was one of them. So when you were sitting across from me at the table, I was like, oh my God, that's Mike Adams over there. And that meant a lot to me. And it just, I knew that there was something special that was just starting to happen.
Well, it's going to continue to grow because, I know with all of us working on the Outdoor Podcast channel, it's just going to be a great thing, man. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm digging it. It's going to be a great ride.
Yep. Are there any books that you would recommend to somebody if you were getting into just any book that you recommend? Which one of your favorite outdoor books of all time?
Favorite outdoor books? I was reading Before the Fire, and I haven't finished it yet, but because I don't have a copy of it anymore.
Gotcha.
Is The Hunting Adventures of Oliver Hazard Perry. He was a Northern soldier, lieutenant, or something in the Northern Army. We're talking Civil War era. I'm a big history buff and Civil War buff, and he was from Northern Ohio, and the book basically talks about his hunting excursions into Michigan. They called it Northern Michigan, but actually he was hunting right here in my home area in the counties that surround me. And some of the things that he encountered, it was just really cool. It kind of inspired me to think of what used to be here, in this area where we live now. And, I don't know, maybe that's the one thing that kind of changed my philosophy towards hunting and becoming more of a conservationist, thinking of how much used to be here and is no longer here just due to, the population.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a good book.
That's a good read. I'm going to put that on my list.
It's pretty much just like a hunting journal. He'll go 2 or 3 days and, he'll write down, talk about those things. And it's pretty cool.
Now, if there's something, and I have these items, like there are a couple things that I have to have with me in the woods. And if I don't have it with me, I feel completely paralyzed or naked. One of which is a good pair of socks, which you pick on me about all the time.
Yeah.
And even a spare backup, because if my feet get too hot, it drives me insane. The second one, and for me, it's a good pair of binoculars. And I've oftentimes, not often, but when I do leave the binoculars in the truck, or I forget to pack them, or it's in my other pack, it drives me insane. Man, I just wish I had those binoculars with me right now.
Yeah.
What's that one item for you?
Strangely enough, I've heard you guys talk about this in the last couple shows. And for me, it's the same thing in binoculars. I've been a big advocate of having a pair of binos on me, for the last 10 years, at least, maybe even 15. My dad started me on them. And it basically boils down to where we hunt. It's not real thick, but you get into some big timber, especially during bow season with the foliage on. You need to be able to see movement before it gets on you. And I'm a firm believer of having, binos with bino straps on while you're bow hunting. Keeps them out of my string path. They're right in my work zone, easy up, easy down, low movement. And it just gives me another set of eyes where I can reach out and, really look. During deer season or rifle season, I think it's important just so you're not pointing the gun and looking through a scope, because you never know what's out there.
Right.
It's a safety issue. It's a big, big safety issue for me. So.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't that, I'd have to say a camera, my video camera. I mean, that's my right arm. That's my passion, as well as podcasting. But when I'm in the field, I try to video as much as I can, everything that I do.
What kind of camera do you bring in the woods with you?
I'm running a Canon XA20 right now. It's a full digital HD prosumer camera.
Okay.
Small, compact, but it's got a great lens on it. Great features, fully adjustable, and it gets out there and does the job.
Gotcha. Now, if there was one hunting tip, what would it be? Perseverance.
From that first deer that I killed, perseverance. There's been many times I've been out, even in, turkey woods, and you just keep thinking, man, there's nothing here. You got to persevere. You just got to keep going, keep waiting it out. Keep doing what you're doing. I've took up trapping here this last year, or not last year, last 3 or 4 years. And, the same way I'm learning with that, and I'm not good at it. But I do get critters, and, that learning phase, persevere, you just keep going, because if you don't, you quit. And if you quit, then you're not hunting. That's no fun.
Right. That's a good one. Perseverance, I think, is one of those big ones we forget. Between that and playing the wind.
I'm a big one on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Scent control. Yeah.
Well, Mike, this has been an amazing hour. And, I think I asked some pretty deep questions, and I'm sorry if I went too deep, but man,
no, man.
That was precious right there.
I love to share, man. It's what I'm about, and hey, it is what it is. Life's too short not to share your journey, man.
Got that right. Well, I think the future is bright for both of us. I feel like you're back in the saddle and just, full speed ahead. So
giddy up,
brother. Giddy up. Yep. Good, man. I'll let you get ready for your next show, because I know that's coming up in the next hour here, because it is Sunday, and I'm sure your wife is getting ready to yell at you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And actually, Danny's running a little late. I'm going to have to kick him in the tail here. I'm going to, maybe I should trade him to you. What do you think? Maybe even up trade for Dusty?
Yeah. We can discuss this. I don't know if maybe we just do a trial run.
Yeah. Yeah. We might have to try that. Who knows? Who knows where?
Yeah, someday we'll try that.
I'm going to threaten Danny with that if you don't get here pretty soon. All right, brother. Well, it's been a pleasure, man. I really enjoyed it.
I appreciate it, Mike. Just awesome.
Well, thanks.
All right. I'll catch you later.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. Well, thanks for tuning in to the Big Buck Podcast. I'm sorry that Dusty is still on vacation. Hey, we all need a break, and I certainly understand. He'll be back on the mic again soon, and I love listening to Mike tell his story. It actually is a true life story, and it goes back 8 years now, and that's why we call him the Godfather of outdoor podcasting, and we all look up to Mike. Mike, thanks for joining me on the show and doing what you do. If you'd like to reach out to us at the Big Buck Registry, is bigbuckregistry.com. That's our website. You can find us at bigbuckregistry.com/Facebook on Facebook. Twitter is twitter.com/bigbuckregistry. Give us a call at 724-613-2825. Leave us a message. Leave us some feedback about this show. You can even leave a little deer story there if you'd like. And if you'd like to submit a buck for a buck that you have taken over the last couple of years, and you want to get some notoriety for it and share it with the world of our 157,000 plus Facebook followers, it's bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck. And if you have a moment and you have an extra buck and you'd like to pledge your support for this show, please go to bigbuckregistry.com/pledge. And whatever you can spare, we'd appreciate it. We do need some help paying the bills around here, and we'd like to keep this show going as long as possible. And right now, we're paying for it out of our own pocket. Well, this is Jay Scott, and Dusty is not here right now, so hopefully you'll tune in again next week. We come back with some great content. We'll see you next week. Can't wait.